Ever wondered how humanity is balancing ocean health and human wealth? Welcome to the Blue Economy. Here in Chicago, we're back on the SailGP circuit as Season 4 of the Global Racing League kicks off in the Windy City. Chicago's an amazing venue, a truly global metropolis. And there's a lot of water around, but it's not by the ocean. So you might think, how can we talk about the blue economy, a concept so associated with the world's ocean? Well, the United Nations specifies it as a range of economic activities related to oceans, seas and coastal areas, and whether these activities are sustainable and socially equitable. So who's to say this doesn't apply to Chicago with an iconic river and one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan? So with that in mind, I'm off to meet an engineer who has not only been integral in creating the city's iconic skyline, but in the face of a changing world, is helping to future-proof the Windy City.
I've spent my whole life watching Lake Michigan. I've seen the best and the worst of this lake. Watching the lake at its highest points and the shoreline disappearing, watching the lake at its lowest point. When you go into the Great Lakes, you're shocked because it's wavy and it feels like an ocean, but there's no salt. We're at the largest source of accessible fresh water in the world. As we know, fresh water is a big key and probably something likely to be more scarce as climate change impacts our environment. So we're sitting on a jackpot here. Water is the new oil. Natural resources like water really become our valued resources, and their value increases as we adjust to the changes we're experiencing. Chicago has been at the forefront of sustainability from day one. I have spent my career designing buildings in Chicago. The recent years of my career really focused on how do we get here? How do we get to a decarbonized infrastructure? We don't really pay the true cost of, our roads and shipping our vegetables across the country. As we start to evolve our infrastructure to decarbonize and mitigate climate change. In addition, the Chicago Climate Action Plan is setting lofty goals to decarbonize our infrastructure in Chicago. We are a cold climate. How do you heat in a cold climate without burning oil and gas? Instead of using electric power to create heat, we are using a technology called heat pumps, which reverses the refrigeration cycle that you have in your air conditioner. So you can extract heat from the air, you can extract heat from water, you move heat around. And when you move heat around, you use like a third of the energy. Natural resources like fresh water will become increasingly important. When we start thinking about where would be a good place to live, one of the places that really comes up is areas that are along the Great Lakes. The lakefront is really for the people of Chicago with equitable access. There are bike trails, there are walking trails, there are beaches. The people of Chicago love the lakefront. Last year when I attended SailGP, it was like the culmination of the Chicago waterfront experience and intersection of all that we value here in Chicago. It's pretty rare that lakefront or waterfront property is reserved for the use of the public. So that's the thing that makes Chicago very special and also feeds into its economy.
This shoreline has become one of the most precious and iconic parts of the city. And for decades, engineer Mark Wagstaff has been one of its chief protectors.
We have some really critical infrastructure that's right up by the lake here in Chicago. We have two of the largest water treatment plants in the country. We also have a major federal highway, Lakeshore Drive, that runs right along here. The Chicago Shoreline protects that infrastructure. In addition, we have a lot of natural habitat. We know that sea level rise is going up. With the lake, it's a different story. Climate change is this kind of tug of war, if you will, between forces that want to increase the lake level. On the other hand, climate change is also bringing periods of drier weather. So we're actually going into a period of increased uncertainty. A lot of the Chicago shoreline, when it was built in the 1920s and 30s, was built with timber and stone blocks. Now that timber is susceptible to rot and deterioration, whereas now we often will use sheet pile and concrete that has a longer life and can reduce maintenance over time. 41st Street Beach was a brand new beach that was added in the 2010s. structures help to keep the beach sand in place, but they're also very reflective. So the wave energy tends to bounce around. The beach at 41st Street is also stabilized by an offshore breakwater, which is made out of large armor stone. So finding replacement materials that can either use less of that armor stone or can be more effective at breaking wave energy is really important. What we're also seeing is a desire to try to move away from carbon-intensive materials. So we're always looking for that combination of durability and sustainability.
Rockwell is the sponsor of the Danish team at SailGP. When we joined SailGP, we thought it would be a great platform to connect us to people that shared the same values of sustainability and the same passion for the planet. Last year, when we were here in Chicago, we met with the SmithGroup, and they were telling us about some of the issues that the city faces, in particular the issues with the shoreline. Rockwool's always been about the built environment. Cities is what we do and what we know best. SmithGroup have been looking for ways to mitigate the risk of wave power absorption and how that is causing erosion to the shorelines. In our discussions with them, we're exploring different ways that maybe they could actually replenish the solutions they have with more natural solutions based on Rockwool's natural products made from stone wool. This is a way for us to come into the city, connect to people thanks to SailGP, which acts as an accelerator to introduce us to people that have the city's well-being at heart and enable us to participate in the best way possible.
There are a couple of really important projects that we've been involved in. Northerly Island, SmithGroup led the planning process, and that has now been converted into an area of natural habitat. You'll see hills with natural vegetation, secluded wetland areas, concert venue, and other park amenities. And it really is a spectacular oasis that is used by Chicagoans year-round. We have this incredible resource open to everybody. That makes it a really attractive place for people to live, and that draws all kinds of different business here to the city. Knowing that it's going to be like this for generation after generation makes Chicago and its economy really stable and sustainable.
It's clear that cities and businesses are wising up to the importance of the blue economy, and smart infrastructure and planning ensure that ocean health and water environments are protected, keeping this economy more agile in mitigating threats like climate change. Ultimately, if our blue economy is healthy, that means our ocean, lakes and rivers are too. That's good for business, and the planet and humanity will reap the rewards. Thanks for watching.